Hi, Soundarya.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, so I first uh, came across your blogs when I was in my third year, uh, and you had a very clear and very helpful article on different internships. And I remember reaching out to you as well, and I remember you had some very helpful feedbacks. And yeah, that helped me, I think, get my internship in some way as well. And so yeah, so when I was doing this series of like having interviews for different uh, people who got into different grad programs, I remembered that like I don't exactly remember how I remembered that I think I was going through some similar, like I was maybe googling stuff like grad school advice or something, and then I think your name popped up, and then I remembered, okay, I contacted you before.
Mhm.
So yeah, thanks for agreeing to do this.
Oh, of course. I don't remember. I didn't remember your message when you first sent it to me a long time
Mhm.
ago, but not many people really take the initiative to give back to the community the way you're
Mhm.
doing right now. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got the second message, and I'm really glad that I can do this. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was preparing for my applications, I found that there wasn't many resources available. Uh, for example, at IIT Kanpur, we had a lot of help and guide regarding how to get job and like in placements and industry, but we didn't really have much of a guide regarding how to like go about this research application process and stuff. So yeah, I thought it would be a
Mhm.
good idea to have something at least in one place. Mm.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you're doing it.
Uh, so could you give a brief introduction about yourself and about your undergrad journey and up to the point where you applied for your grad school? I know it's an interesting story.
Sure. So you want me to just stick to my undergrad story until I reach the US, not what I've been doing for the past few years.
Yeah, let's first go through your
Sure.
undergrad journey and till the point where you decide that you want to apply for grad school.
Um, I don't remember a time when I did not want to apply for grad school. And I
Mhm.
also mentioned this in my book, Admitted, is that, at least in my case, pursuing education abroad was just always a given. Even in my first year, when I was doing my undergrad in chemical engineering, I just knew that I wanted to keep studying more after I finished my undergrad. Back then, my vision was different, though. I wanted to pursue a PhD in something related to my major, which
Mhm.
at the time was chemical engineering. I'm not doing that right now. And I'm really
Mhm.
glad that I'm not doing that. Just because I have over the years listened to myself more and more. And I
Mhm.
realized that that's not where my passion is. Um, but yeah, I don't remember a specific moment or a specific lecture that really changed my mind.
Mhm.
I think it was more of just a given since the beginning. And it got strengthened over time, though.
Mhm.
Um, the first time I stepped into the United States was back in 2016. This was on May 23rd or May 19th, 2016,
Mhm.
when I landed in Wisconsin Madison to um, to essentially spend the summer at University of Wisconsin Madison through a scholarship program called S.N.Bose, and I'm sure you've heard of that. That gave me such a wonderful taste of what studying abroad could look like, and it might have even given me a picture that was too rosy because while I was still in a new country and I was experiencing all of these different culture shocks that anyone experiences,
Mhm.
I was also experiencing it along with other people, other scholars, in what felt like a very comfortable bubble. So
Mhm.
I had other people who were experiencing it along with me. So it didn't feel like I was alone. And it was 10 of us together going through this journey together.
So, how was your research experience during your undergrad internship like?
Um, I honestly don't remember much from those times,
Mhm.
especially on the research side, just because, once again, I have moved away from a career in research.
Mhm.
So the past few years, I have not been spending any time thinking about my research
Mhm.
side of things.
Yeah.
Um, a few things I do remember are I was working on a theoretical problem.
Mhm.
where I had to use the software called GAMS to optimize for supply chain in the Upper Peninsula region of Minneapolis. I really don't remember
Yeah,
much at this point.
I meant of more on the non-technical side, as in
Oh, okay.
what takeaway did you have from like research in the United States point of view?
I thought that my lab was really helpful. I had a mentor who was doing his PhD back then, who was assigned to me, and I could reach out to him if I had any questions. I also had other people, not specifically from my lab, but just people that I reached out to in general, who were really helpful. One of the names that I remember now is Dhruv Gupta. So Dhruv was one of the people that I was in contact with, who was then pursuing his PhD or postdoc at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And it was just nice to reach out to people who were from India, currently doing their postgraduate studies at that university. I remember a lot of time being spent with my friends and other scholars from who came from different parts of India. So, we had scholars who were from a pure mathematics background, bioengineering, and neuroscience, and so on. So, at the end of each day, we all would convene together in the kitchen, and we would cook together and eat together, and we visited places together. Almost every weekend, we would go to a new place, whether it be the zoo or going to a new city like Chicago, Minneapolis. So yeah, a lot of my memories were around forming connections with the people that I met there and being exposed to a new way of living life.
So you said that it was clear in your head that you wanted to apply for higher studies in the US from the word go. So I think you did a master's in management, right?
It was a master's in management science and engineering. Yes.
Okay. So how did you decide that you wanted to apply for a master's in a certain field, or whether you wanted to go for a PhD?
It was 4 months of thinking, and I actually dedicated an entire chapter in my book, Admitted, to help people choose their major, because at least in my case, it was not very obvious, or at least it was obvious until a certain point. But the moment I came back from US and I got time to reflect on the experience, it just felt like I should not be pursuing a PhD in chemical engineering or in energy engineering or whatever I thought I should be pursuing it in. While I could do what I was asked to do in my research, and I could actually do it pretty well, it was not what excited me. There were a few factors that also played here that helped me make this decision. Number one, as I was going through the research journey throughout my undergrad, I was also part of many communities. I was part of the astronomy club, content writing club, the mobile app development club, and I also fortunately got the opportunity to found a club myself. And so I founded the chapter of this worldwide organization called AIESEC, AIESEC. And through that, I got a taste of what it takes to build a team from scratch, to maintain a team, to keep something going, take something from 0 to 1. And it was extremely hard. Many, many, many failures along the way, but it was absolutely worth it. And the few successes that we had just completely overshadowed all the failures that we had. So since I got a taste of what it feels like to do work outside a lab, to do work out there in the field with people, organizing events and ideating on, okay, what can we do next to, say, improve the engagement, or how can we help more students volunteer abroad, because that was the mission that we had with our club, to help people go on volunteering programs to a different country and work with a nonprofit there. That was just so much more rewarding for me personally. Mainly because that was something that I was doing on my own, of my own volition. not because someone else thought I should be doing it. And I've seen that theme over and over again, specifically in my life. That was one reason. And secondly, during my S.N.Bose scholarship, the summer internship program, I also was alongside other people who were pursuing their research, who were all wanting to pursue a PhD. Um, and when I got to see them closely and observe the way they felt about what they were doing, I just saw this harmony between the way I was feeling about what I was working on versus what my friends were feeling about what they were working on. And many of them, I think I would say most of them, are currently pursuing a PhD or pursued further studies on what they were working on.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed wrong that I was going to pursue a PhD in this topic, which I didn't feel as passionate about. And I finally got this reference point as to what other people felt about what they were doing. You're doing a PhD in astrophysics. So I would think that you feel pretty damn passionate about what you're doing. And that's why you decided to invest 5 years of your life, which is no small thing. So those 2 points really helped.
Also, like, I think this is also a common confusion. Did you at any point of time had any confusion of entering the industry job market, especially coming from an engineering background?
No, I never ever thought of that, only because the foundation of I want to leave India to go to a new country and study there was clear. I only had to figure out what would go on top of that. And also because I came to the US that summer and I got to see what the US was like, I just felt like I had to come back here because at least in my university in India, there was huge gender discrimination in terms of roll calls and curfews for women. And it wasn't until I came to the US that I even got to see what full freedom looks like, of taking care of yourself without anyone watching over you looks like. And I could resonate with that much more than with what I was going through, what just all of us women were subjected to in my university there.
Okay. So you'd suggest that one should probably try out different things that they have confusion in. Like, for example, you tried out both research as well as some management related work, and then you could feel what works for you the best instead of just following the crowd or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated 2.5 years ago, and since I've graduated from Columbia, I've taken on many more hats. And that's because I personally believe that we all have a short life. And yes, it's 80 years long on average human time scale, but it is pretty short at the same time. So I don't want to have a tunnel vision of just focusing on one career for my entire life. I personally don't. I hugely respect people who do that, who spend their entire life, say, as doctors or as engineers or astrophysicists. That's wonderful for them. The difference is that right now we don't have to do that, though. Is that maybe 60 years ago, it might not have been possible for you to switch careers every few years. But right now it is possible. And for those people who are listening to this out there, for those who feel like just focusing on one thing for the rest of my life or for the next 5-10 years doesn't resonate with me, I would really ask them to just spend some time thinking and asking themselves, so what is it that you're interested in? Because thankfully, we don't have to stick to one career anymore. And I envision myself to be a polymath who explores many, many different fields because of personal preference. Once again, I don't think it's hard to say that everyone should experiment because some people just have always known that they want to be this one thing, and kudos to them, let them go do that. But for those who feel like they don't have that one thing that they want to focus on, this is the best time to be alive, and it's the best time to experiment. So for those people, I would definitely recommend experimenting.
Okay. Yeah, definitely they can look up to you for that. I also get like a lot of queries regarding a similar topic, that when they have this doubt that if I switch from, say, uh, job and say apply for a research or something, I would not be easily accepted, or like the chances of success gets reduced because I have less experience, which comes into play. For example, if I'm applying for grad school and if I don't have research experience, and same goes for vice versa. So what did you say, or what advice did you have regarding this transition period of change?
The transition period of what exactly?
Of this change when you're switching careers, or this, or the very fact that you were changing this mindset from, say, I was doing this, say I was sure that I would be going for an industry job, and then I decided that now I want to apply for research, but I'm scared to do it because I'd feel like my chances of acceptance are that I'd make a good career out of it are less, because I don't have much experience in it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because we all tell a specific story to ourselves of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks different for everyone. The stories that I tell of myself to myself and to the world would be different from a story that you tell of me to yourself and to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we are all just living in our own subjective realities, and it's built by the stories we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think it took me a while to change my story from I'm a chemical engineer, I've been doing research in energy engineering, and I'm going to pursue a PhD in EE, to I was a chemical engineer, and I spent 3 years of my life on this specific major, and now I've decided to change focus, and that's my past. And my present is that I want to be a so and so, whatever that is. So when I came to the US, I wanted to be a consultant, but I'm not anymore. So stories change over time. Um, I can just talk about my experience. It took me about 4 months to go from I want to do a PhD in chemical engineering to I want to do a master's in management.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the I don't remember the exact transition, but it certainly involved a lot of taking walks by myself. It involved simply exploring
Mm-hmm.
and just looking at what a master's in management requirements look like.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you might think, oh, we will not be eligible for that just because our undergrad was
Yeah,
in this
exactly.
specific
Mm-hmm.
major. Um, but in my case, well, it was not true because I got into a few universities for specifically for masters in
Mm-hmm.
engineering management and management sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can do it, so can other people, and it
Mm-hmm.
sets the trend at least.
Yeah.
I would say what helped me was definitely my clubs, the club that I founded.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I did an internship at IIM Ahmedabad, which is one of the best MBA schools in India.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment I knew that I wanted to apply for master's in management, I just felt like I would need to add something more in my application. So I reached out to a few professors in IIMA and IIMB.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found professors whose profile interested me, and I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to quite a few professors. One of them responded, and everything worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up doing a 1 month internship, which eventually extended for a few more weeks as well
Okay.
at IAMA.
So is this
During
is
my
Yeah, this was during your 4-year BTech, or after that?
This was during after my seventh semester, before
Okay.
I so one semester before I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mentioned that in my application.
Mm-hmm.
So that certainly helped, I would think. And also, if you really zoom out of just your own story, for example, you're only writing 1,000 words in your SOP, 1,000 words from a story that you lived for 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there is so much you can talk about. And sometimes it's easy for us to forget that we've actually done a lot in our lives. And it's not just, you're not just someone who has done bachelor's in physics. and internships at so and so and so places. There are also so many more things. You're probably also a chess player. You're probably also a debater. You probably also volunteer at some nonprofit every week. So if people start peering closer into all the things they've done, then it's just a matter of, okay, which one do I cherry pick from these experiences to craft this SOP? So you have to get really good at getting into the mindset of the people who are reading your essay, because they're looking for you to convince them to pick you, and they're looking for you to tell them why are you a good fit for this specific degree, and how can this university help you in return with your goals. So it's not just a one-way marriage, it's a two-way marriage, because you're extending your hand and they're also extending their hand, and it has to be a fit both ways. So just to summarize that, number one, it is possible to switch majors. Number two, when you're applying and you're switching majors, it's important for you to think about which aspect of my story do I put forward here, because they don't need to know that I spent 3 summers doing research in, say, energy engineering. They can just know that in the past 4 years, I have founded a club. I've been part of 6 other clubs. I've done an internship at one of the best MBA schools, and also a few other things. So it's more about you telling a very compelling story, and I think we're all capable of that. So
yeah, that's inspiring. So once you decided that you wanted to go for a master's in management related field, so how did you go about deciding which universities you want to pick, or how many universities you want to apply for?
another question that requires a really long answer. And once again, this is another entire, I think one of the longest chapters in Admitted is how can you shortlist universities? For now, I will briefly say that in my case, I searched for the top programs for engineering management and masters in management. And since I had pretty good grades and just a good profile overall in terms of my GRE TOEFL scores and grades and awards and so on, I aimed for the highly ranked universities. In hindsight, would I do the same? I don't think so. I would probably spend more time looking at other factors as well. So in Admitted, we built this framework, which we just call the 4-quadrant framework, where I take people through the 4 quadrants that they should be thinking about when they're shortlisting universities. And the first quadrant is all about academia. So things such as the quality of research conducted at that university for that specific major, the classes and courses that they offer, and all the other things that come under academia and research. The second quadrant was all about career. So I would think that if you want to study in the US, you also want to work in the US. So it's important to look at what's the track record for this specific department and university in helping me, say, get an internship and a job. And also just looking at the pedigree of all the alumni and seeing if they're working at companies where I consider myself to be working at soon. The third quadrant would be all about just the essentials in terms of tuition, what's tuition, what's the cutoff for GPA, GRE, TOEFL, just so that you meet the minimum bar. Some universities actually openly say that we only accept students over this specific grade or GRE score. So in those cases, it's easier because you don't waste money applying to them. And finally, there are factors which come into play in your day-to-day life at the university, such as, what are the quality of resources at the library? Or if you're a sports person, if you say, let's say you're a national basketball player, I would think you would want to at least know what are the quality of sport facilities that you find in that university. Aside from that, I think I just turned the 4th quadrant as miscellaneous. And I put things such as, do they offer scholarships, sport facilities, other facilities, and so on. So
Okay.
that's in a very brief manner what the 4-quadrant framework is. In the chapter in the book itself, I go into much more detail on how you can create a scoring sheet
Mm-hmm.
where you can find resources to get information on all of these different quadrants,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially guide students through shortlisting universities in a way where at least you can feel like when you go through the entire chapter in the process, in the end, you would feel like I did the best possible job
Mm-hmm.
in choosing where I have to study.
Yeah.
And you will have that peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. In that process, did you have to like email faculty members, or do you think that process helps, or it doesn't matter?
Um, I was not doing a master's that was oriented towards research.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not looking forward, I was not going to be doing research in my master's. So
Mm-hmm.
I did not email any professors for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's different if you're a researcher. If you're going to pursue a master's in a thesis oriented path,
Yeah.
then I would highly recommend that you browse through the professors' profiles and reach out to those
Mm-hmm.
who are doing things that you want to do.
Okay. So it depends whether it's research oriented or course oriented. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Now coming to the funding part. So how does funding in masters work in general in the US, or something specific to your department?
Are you asking about scholarships or tuition?
Yeah, various scholarship options or various funding options, or like for example, certain master's program in some universities like offer TA-ship options, or some offer full scholarships.
Yeah. So in my case, I applied for a lot of scholarships even before I left India.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really fortunate to get two scholarships, the J.N.Tata Fellowship and the K.C.Mahindra Scholarship Trust. So they offered both a scholarship and a loan scholarship. Loan scholarship meaning that they would give me money, which I don't have to return for the next 7 years. And I can return without any interest on top of it. So you're saving some money there. Um, I think together these two scholarships funded about 25-30% of my total expenses. And the rest, I took a huge loan um, in India from Punjab National Bank. And Columbia it's an expensive school. It's probably the most expensive school for the major that I was doing. And so that's how I funded myself. Fortunately, I have paid off my loan because of where I'm working at and where they compensate you pretty well. But in hindsight, I would think I in hindsight I would do things differently. Um, I don't know if I would have wanted to choose Columbia just
Mm-hmm.
because of the tuition that you have to
Yeah.
pay there. But in terms of advice to students who are looking for funding, actually, we in admitted this chapter on scholarships talks about all the different scholarships you can apply to, and we
Mm-hmm.
actually provide a list of 30 scholarships that people can go look at,
Mm-hmm.
and these were scholarships that I spent
Okay.
hours searching, and Sai, my
Mm-hmm.
collaborator, we both spent so many hours just surfing through the web to find scholarships that people can apply to. Um, I applied to about 15 and I got two.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I funded my master's. I did do, I did engage in a few on-campus jobs, which helped me a little bit, but nothing major though.
Okay, interesting. Like one question that I normally ask is that while preparing, did you find any useful links or resources which you could share? But I think in your case, you have a book on it. So would you like to say something on that?
Sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd like to say that we spent 2,000 hours writing
Mhm.
that book and collecting all the resources, designing it. And it's an extremely visual book. So
Mhm.
um, I guess, can I just quickly share my screen? It's so much
Yeah,
easier to just
yeah,
show the book
of
than
course,
just
yeah.
talk about it.
Mhm.
So it
Uh,
was not just me. It was me along with about 7 other people who worked on it with me.
Mm-hmm.
And two of them, Sai and Rishabh, also contributed in quite a few chapters, and they both went to Ivy Leagues as well, Dartmouth and Brown University.
Mm-hmm.
So just quickly sharing the table of contents.
Yeah, sure.
The book covers everything from the moment you think, should I study abroad? Should you even
Mm-hmm.
study abroad? All the way until you go to, say, choosing the major universities,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for GRE, TOEFL, crafting
Mm-hmm.
resume, SOP, LORs, and applying for scholarships, preparing for interviews, choosing your university, and finally all the things that happens after you choose your university, such as getting your loan, visa, networking, and so on. So the book itself is pretty long. It's about 368 pages,
Mm-hmm.
but it's quite visual, as you can see here. It's I worked with two graphic designers on this, excellent designers, and so we made the book as fun as a book on this topic can honestly get.
So how did this idea come about?
The idea for a book?
Yeah.
Oh, serendipity. That's the short answer. But the slightly longer answer is I wanted to work on building a very, very, very short PDF guide on this topic.
Okay.
Maybe just 10 pages, because I've already written many articles on this topic. I was not anticipating writing a book at all. This was in December 2019 when I really just wanted to create a few PDFs, 10-page PDFs on topics such as studying abroad, product management, writing, and so on. Just topics where I felt like I had good expertise. And we happened to pick study abroad as the first PDF project. I reached out to my junior Sai, who had recently written an article back then on his journey to getting into various universities. I really liked that article. So I reached out to him asking, would you like to collaborate with me on a project? Sorry, there were some people who were going next to me. So I'll just say that again. So we happened to pick study abroad as the first topic. I reached out to my junior Sai from NIT. He had recently back then written an article on his journey to getting into all the universities he applied to. I enjoyed reading that article. So I reached out to him asking if he'd like to collaborate with me on just creating a PDF, combining all of my previous articles and his articles into one document. And I was doing this just to create a few free resources that I can offer people to in exchange sign up for my newsletter. That was the goal behind creating this. But then we began working together. We kept writing and writing and writing, and it just felt like this was meant to be something bigger. And what was meant to be a 1-week project extended for 9 months, and we published Admitted on August 23rd, 2020. So yeah, there's just no way we could have anticipated this in the beginning.
Yeah, it's something super helpful, I think. I think along with my other batchmates or everyone I've talked with so far, I think we were completely dependent on guidance by some of our seniors with regard to all the application process. And okay, we were lucky enough to have like people in good places who could guide us. But I'm sure there's a need for a more general guidance in this sense. And yeah, this is really helpful for sure.
Thank you. And, I would admit it as a book, yes, and it offers many, many, many frameworks and mental models. But a few things to note there is it's also my story that I put in there. So essentially what you're getting is you're hearing from someone who's been through the process, who has spent a lot of time reflecting on the process, and who is now sharing all of her lessons and mistakes that you can avoid when you're applying. So you're essentially getting a magnifying lens into someone else's experience, and getting a look into her mind and her brain. So you can accelerate your learning, that you don't have to wait for 4 years or 3 years to get to that place yourself. And anyone who gets the book also gets access to a Slack community that we've set up. We have over 1,000 people right now in the community.
Okay.
And they also get access to resources such as like what the best written essays, essays that got into MIT, Stanford, Columbia, resumes, resume examples, scholarship, 30 plus scholarships that we've curated, and all the webinars that we keep conducting. So, honestly, it's while I'm biased, I think for $10, you're getting access to thousands of hours of work that someone put in or people put in together. So probably one of the best investment anyone can make.
Yeah, of course. I think like any other program that helps you with grad schools, like charges you hundreds of dollars for like just a statement of purpose review or something. And yeah, this would be super helpful, I think. I wish I knew about it before. Yeah. Okay, you mentioned some things about the statement of purpose and how it should tell the story that you have had so far. So could you like summarize from your own journey that what you learned should be included in your SOP versus what are some common mistakes that should be avoided?
I would recommend students to treat the essay as essentially your story. Yes, it's a statement of purpose. It's your story, but also try to get into the minds of those who are reading it and understand what they would be looking for. They probably don't care about a lot of your story. They're asking you, they're looking for you to answer a few questions, such as, why are you applying to this? What experience do you have? What qualification do you have to apply to this program and this degree? Why this university? Because you have 4,000 plus universities in the US. So why did you choose us? And what's your big goal? Because getting into a university is just a small step in a very long journey in life. And it's just a conduit to do greater things. And so I would think universities would also look for people whose entire dream in life is not to get into that university. That university is just a step in a much bigger process. So it's important to make sure that you answer all of these critical questions in your essay in different parts. And secondly, I would try to be just very honest with your story. For example, if in my case, something that I wish I did was if I could go back and rewrite my SOP, I would have explained my transition from research to management more. I would have just honestly told them that, hey, this is what I thought I was supposed to do. But then it took me a few months to change my mind. And it didn't happen overnight. And here are all the reasons why I changed it and why this is my current passion. And I think I can be extraordinary in this field. So I think explaining that better would have helped me more, maybe. And I definitely recommend everyone to get it proofread many, many times. As a writer, when I see typos, I do judge the person who wrote that. And I get that, typos happen, but this is a document that's one of the key documents that's helping you get into university. So it's worth you spending at least 5-6 iterations going over and just making sure there's no ungrammatical phrases or typos or errors and so on. So highly recommend doing that. And in terms of, I can't think of any mistakes to avoid off the top of my head. I would just end that by saying that there is a famous quote. I don't remember who said this. It's in my book on the chapter on SOPs, but I can't remember it right now. It goes something like, don't tell me that the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on the broken glass. So it's about telling you that don't tell me that the sky is blue. Rather, paint me a picture that makes me feel that the sky is blue or the grass is green. So how can you do that in SOP? That requires an entire masterclass in itself, and we cannot do that now.
Yeah.
But a starting point would be to read good SOPs, to read well-written SOPs by people who are good writers as well. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, one thing I think which is like repeated by everyone is that you should have it reviewed multiple times. I think that's one of the most helpful thing, personally for me at least. Moving on to one of the most asked questions, which personally it's about GRE and TOEFLs and stuff. Personally, I don't I have strong feelings about these exams, but since it's asked quite a few often, what tips do you have, or what advice would you have regarding preparation for GRE or TOEFL?
I personally really enjoyed preparing for them because I love language and I love writing. So the exams just gave me a reason to do that more.
Yeah.
I guess my advice would be that, which is we're all writers. I mean, people like me spend more time writing on a daily basis. But every single person, especially if you're a knowledge worker, if you're working in front of a computer, you're writing, you're typing every single day. So I think it's important to first shift your mindset of these exams from thinking of them as barriers and hurdles to thinking of them as enablers and champions. Because these exams, while the premise of having these exams, is it useful or not for your master's, is debatable, you cannot change the rules of the game right now. The exams are there. So it's just so much helpful for you if you think of them as enablers in your journey, because they are doing that. They are helping you get better mastery over English and mathematics. And GRE especially, I personally think is a great way to improve someone's English, especially if someone's not used to writing in English every single day or speaking in it. So just changing that mindset would help a lot. Regarding the tip itself, I am trying to think of a few tips that help me. Mock exams help me a lot, especially, I don't remember exactly which platform this was, but I purchased 6 mock exams.
Yeah.
And they were all adaptive as well. So just like GRE, as you answer more and more difficult questions, the questions get more difficult. And so finishing the mock exams and then very, very, very carefully reviewing where I'm going wrong. Which section am I going wrong? What am I not getting as a concept? And in my case, it was verbal, logical reasoning. I felt like I was making so many mistakes there. So I focused then more on getting better at that. I took the GRE twice. I scored 321 in my first attempt, 166 in quant, and 158 in verbal. Or is that right? Or 155 in verbal? I don't remember. And I took it a second time about a few months later when I scored 328. So I scored 170 in quant at that time, which I was very happy with. And I was expecting 160 plus in verbal, but by the time I felt like, well, 328 was good enough to apply to the universities I wanted to apply to.
You have a great memory of all the numbers.
Yeah, these are numbers you don't forget.
So I don't remember at all.
People have asked me though.
Of course, yeah. While preparing maybe for your book and stuff as well.
Yes, that as well. But I meant people have asked me, I got so-and-so score. I'm not happy with it. Should I take the GRE again? Or should I take TOEFL again? And I can only say what went through my mind. For me, I just had this feeling that if I took the exam again, I could do better. Because I was just not happy at all with the score I got the first time, since it was so off from what I was getting in my mock tests. So it felt like just in that specific day, on that specific day, I was not doing well. It's not because my entire preparation was not good enough.
Yeah.
So I felt like I wanted to take it again, more out of just being stubbornly optimistic that I can do better.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone out there watching who is thinking that I didn't get a good score, I want to take it again, I would say it's $200. If that's not a financial strain for you, then go ahead and take it again. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a peace of mind. Um, Assuming that you also have some time, because you shouldn't take GRE the
Yeah.
next day after you take it. Give it at least a
Mm-hmm.
month before you take it again. So that's just my piece of advice there.
Question, but people often wonder which aspect of their application is like more important. Like if I have bad grades, would I not get? Or should my recommendations be more stronger than anything else? Or should my SOP be better? What's your take on that?
Um, I'm tempted to say that universities look at every part of the application.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the question is wrong here. The question shouldn't be which part of my application is more important than the other. Rather, the question should be, what is the university looking for in this part of my application?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to your essay, they're looking for you to show your written skills, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for you to provide a compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for you to also tell the things that you did not tell in other parts of your application.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of your application is very focused on outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
It's numbers and grades, but the essay is a place for you to talk about yourself as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would think about the essay. When it comes to recommendation, what are they looking for? They're looking for someone that you worked under, to tell them what was it that made you stand out to them.
Mm-hmm.
And a recommendation is never a badly written recommendation.
Yeah.
No one is going to say that this person was horrible and I would not
Yeah.
hire them for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the universities know that it's going to be, at the very least, someone praising you.
Mm-hmm.
So then you should ask yourself, how can I make my recommendation stand out?
Mm-hmm.
And that, I would say, mostly depends on your recommender.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have a choice. You're the one choosing your recommender.
Mm-hmm.
So choosing someone who can talk about specific aspects of you. Um, I actually feel like just giving this example from my book would be helpful here.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through quite a few recommendation letters that I found online, and I was
Mm-hmm.
also thinking about what would a badly written recommendation look like versus a well-written recommendation look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted some examples in my book of what is a badly written letter versus something that's well written. And I'll just read that out to you so people can see the difference.
Yeah, sure.
So a badly written recommendation would say, it's my pleasure to recommend Kaustav to your graduate program.
Mm-hmm.
Kaustav took my course on psychology in his junior year. He's a strong student, works well with his peers, and is attentive inside the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
He scored an A in my course and consistently scored above average in his assignments. Apart from being a good student, he is also the head of design for the university's magazine and spends his time volunteering at the local NGO.
Mm-hmm.
That's the badly written recommendation. And it's not a bad
Yeah.
recommendation. It's just badly written.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at this other, a well-written recommendation. It says, Kaustav caught my attention from the very first day with
Mm-hmm.
his thought-provoking questions that he asked in my classes when he took my course on psychology. He displays maturity that goes well beyond his years and treats his peers with great respect, something that I witnessed when his team came for office hours every other week.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from excelling inside the classroom, I've also had the pleasure of witnessing his excellent design skills in the university's magazine published every month.
Mm-hmm.
His passion to give back to the community through volunteering is obvious through his thesis essay and even casual encounters.
Mm-hmm.
I strongly recommend him for your graduate program, and I'm waiting to see him shine.
Okay.
This is the difference. So it's important that people pick people who can write
Yeah.
like the ladder.
Yeah. Between like difference being, I think, being generic versus very specific to you, kind of.
yeah, difference between anyone who can write that versus only you who can write
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I'll ask one last, if that's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole application journey, you prepare a lot for each application. You're given so much time, and then even then the probability of getting in is very low. So how do you suggest on like dealing with the stress and the anxiety of waiting for a result versus also uh, handling rejections?
Um, I remember my first rejection. It came on February 17th of 2017,
Mhm.
and it was at 11:50 p.m.
Okay.
Right before I went to bed, I got an email from MIT's chemical engineering department saying that they did not select me.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a really difficult night. I cried a lot. And why shouldn't you, though? I think anyone who gets a rejection should feel the pain of being rejected because you put in dozens of hours to apply to that university and you really wanted to be there. So
Mhm.
I would say first, it's important to acknowledge that part of you which didn't get what it wanted.
Mhm.
And it's important to not suppress that feeling and just let it out. And if it's crying for you, do that. If it's calling a friend and complaining, then do that. Whatever it is to make sure that you don't have any residual feelings from that rejection. And then you would realize soon enough that it's not the end of the world. It's really not. And it's a question of how can you realize that soon? Because we all realize eventually that getting that rejection was just a really small step in the journey. Um, but some of us realize that soon, and some of us probably take months to get there. So getting there sooner, I would recommend people to put things in perspective, to just have a support system around you who you can talk to, who can tell you that this is not the end of the world, because it's hard for you to be your own therapist and guide when you're going through that process. So having a support system. And secondly, I also think just going out there and searching for other possibilities would really help. So we all know there are 4,000 universities in the US, or 4,000 plus, but we act like this was the one university that we wanted. And now that it rejected us, that's it. There's no more universities to apply to. But that's just not true. So just continuing to go out there and just going to Google and searching for what other possibilities are out there would help. Um, and I also think I'm a huge champion for developing techniques to take care of yourself in the form of journaling and meditation, going for walks.
Mhm.
So just knowing what would help you before you get to these stages of rejection would be helpful.
Yeah.
So in my case, journaling really helps process certain things I'm going through in life,
Mhm.
but it looks different for everyone. I would say journaling is actually a great solution for most people, but just thinking about how can I help myself? How can I help my future self who would be in that position
Mhm.
would be a good starting point.
Yeah. I'm sure also your words would be very inspiring for those who are going through it now.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, thanks a lot for your time. Uh, I mean, your all your answers were very, very inspiring and very descriptive. And of course, people who want to like learn more about all of this stuff, I think can go through your book as well. Uh, so yeah, thanks a lot for the time. Do you have like any final good luck message?
Well, thank you for doing this. You're the one doing all the hard work and editing videos and talking to people. So just thank you so much for doing this. My final words would be that I have learned more outside classes than inside classes just in the
Mhm.
last 2.5 years since I've graduated. And the world is so big and filled with possibilities that enjoy the time that you're spending inside universities, because it's a
Mhm.
privilege that very few people get to do. But just know that whatever happens there, there is such a big world out there. And once you go out there, you will be overwhelmed and overjoyed, and
Mhm.
it's just going to be a wonderful journey. So focus on building yourself before you get out there.